Well, hi, I'm Kaylee Cross, aka Miss Piggy88, author of Life on the Rocks. Basically, I know a lot of people have whinged at me for doing this, planning on doing this video, but really it was just a case of me wanting to answer some questions that I've had throughout the story and explaining a few things as to why the story's gone the way it has, and it's my way of giving something back to you for my absences and for the amount of support that you've shown, really. One of the, so starting with some of the smaller questions, some people wanted to know where I'm from. Well, obviously, by my accent, I'm from England, and it might explain for some of you some of the choices in slang and the humour in the story. I feel there is quite a strong English sense of humour in the story, and certain words that I've used are more popular over here than, let's say, America, including, some people have said to me, for example, why use the word arse, because it sounds funny, but that's how we talk. That's, it's something we say. And another question I've had is, what does my fiance feel about my writing and my fan base? And the simplest way to answer that is, he's supportive about it. He asks occasionally how I'm getting on, and how many followers I've got on Wattpad and stuff like that, but it might sound a bit strange, but I get a little embarrassed about it when he asks, and I generally prefer to write when he's at work and he's not here, so I can concentrate on it without him wondering what I'm doing. And but he understands why I write, and I couldn't have asked for a more supportive fiance. He respects why I do it and that it's something I love. Which then I guess follows on to the question, why do I write, and what inspires me? Well, the reason, I guess, to start with, why I write, it's all I know. Pretty much as soon as I could pick up a pen, as soon as I could write words, I wrote stories. Even to the fact that, even if I wasn't writing, I'd be telling stories. As I got older, I wrote poetry, but it's something I've always done. It's part of who I am. As for my inspiration stuff, I've always been interested in supernatural and the whole vampire, werewolfy, sort of thing, especially vampires. Growing up, being a teenager, I wrote I read God knows how many vampire stories, and I absolutely loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and things like movies like Bram Stoker's Dracula and Interview with a Vampire. But as for writing it, I don't know, I've never, it's not something I've tried yet, writing about vampires, but writing about werewolves, just, I normally I write just normal, I've tried writing normal, romance novels, I guess you could say. Most of them have had slightly a more adult, theme to them, but when I was introduced to Wattpad by my younger sister, she recommended One of the Boys by Lily Rain, and that really is what got me started into writing werewolf stories. I fell in love with her story, and the fact that it's a topic that you can do whatever you want with. You don't have to stick to the general idea of it. You can turn it into anything you want. You can add anything. It could be that only the males shift. You know, maybe they shift instantly, maybe they shift from birth, maybe there's mates, maybe there's not mates. You know, it's something you can do it however you want, and that's what I love. I love the freedom you get with it. I have tried writing other types of stories on Wattpad, but they don't ever seem to be as popular. You know, people don't always seem to get into them. And also, you know, especially with this story in particular, the inspiration for this story, I had been writing 2 other stories, which I'm sure some of you may have seen before. There's the series of The Girl Who Cried Wolf, and the sequel I've started but have been taking a break from, The Girl in Wolf's Clothing, and there's also my other story in Heat. I took a break from them when I fell pregnant with my daughter, and Life on the Rocks was like a filler, a way of getting back into writing, a way of, you know, finding my feet again. And it was never meant to be, you know, a big story. It was only going to be a couple of chapters. It was going to be light-hearted and funny, and, you know, it was just a way for me to, you know, get back into it. And obviously, the more I wrote, the more of you read it, and the more of you seemed to love it, and it just sort of inspired me to write even more. And the story itself now isn't what I originally planned. You know, it was supposed to be light-hearted and funny, and Ray was going to be this quirky character, you know, this strong female. And obviously, as you could tell, as it got into the middle of the story, you know, that sort of changed. And I think personally that reflects on myself. After I had my daughter, I suffered with postnatal depression, and as this happened, the story took a slight darker turn, and that's another reason why I write. I write because, you know, it's my form of therapy. Writing expresses myself, it gets my feelings out, it allows me to free myself of the thoughts that wander around my head that, you know. And I should imagine for a lot of you that's what reading does, you know, the way that, you know, people want to escape from their reality by reading. And, you know, for me, with my struggles, which I'd like to say, you know, I'm pretty much back to my normal self now, and that's mainly thanks to you guys, you know, for reading this story. And this story has been a major help to me. And, you know, I'd hope that for some of you that are going through bad things, that, you know, reading this story has helped you. And I know from a couple of comments I've had, there are people that have had similar experiences to Ray in this story, and, you know, they understand where she's coming from. And knowing that there are people that understand her and understand where I'm coming from, it's absolutely amazing. And some of the other, you know, questions relative to the story is, you know, why Georgia Henley? Well, personally, I think she's like a natural beauty. She's not your typical beautiful girl, and that's what I like about her. And that's what I wanted for Ray. I didn't want her to be glamorous and, you know, in your face beautiful. You know, she's what I guess you could call an English rose, and to me that's what Georgia Henley is. And, you know, she fit the bill when I was doing, you know, when I was describing her. For me, that is who Ray is. I know other people have had suggestions, but for me, she's Ray. Also, people have wanted to know why I chose the names I've chosen. Well, for Ray, mainly, my little girl's middle name is Rain. And I thought about using her and her other middle name's Faith. So Rainy Faye is sort of like a tribute to her. You know, it's not quite her name, but it's similar. And you know, I wanted Ray to be a very, you know, a tomboy type, and I thought giving her a really, really over the top, girly, childish name. No offence to anybody whose name is Rainy Faye, but, you know, I thought for her it was such a contrast to her personality that it fits so well. As for other characters, you know, I go through baby name books, baby name sites, anything that stands out to me, you know, I'll choose. It's like my other stories. I have a character in my The Girl Who Cried Wolf called Tyler, which is actually my little boy's name. I like to use names that have something to do with me, things that, you know, a lot of them are named after people I know, or they're based on people I know, not necessarily the names themselves, but the characters are. Some people have wanted to know who my favourite character is, and obviously to start with it was Rey. You know, in a way it still is. You know, I loved how quirky and, you know, strong and determined she was to not be the person that they were trying to make her be. She wasn't going to fit the mould they wanted her to. And, you know, like many of you, you followed her through her struggles and seeing the rebirth of her and her being that strong person now. And of course, none of that would be possible, some would say, without Cole. But for me, the person who's brought her back to herself, and if not a stronger version of herself, is Helena. And for me, Helena is the type of person, personality-wise, that I wanted Rey to originally be. So I think by adding Helena, I brought back that fun side. You know, the story was getting quite dark in some aspects, and bringing her in kind of made it a bit more light-hearted, a bit more fun, and that's what I wanted. It needed a bit of light, a bit of humour. It needed a bit of heart, I guess, and I wanted it to show different angles of things. And I think Helena's just this off-the-wall, bubbly, bouncy person, and I think a lot of people like her. You know, she doesn't care what people think of her, what she does. You know, she's going to do it. You know, she's a strong female, and for a story that I wanted to write that was based on a very strong male population, and, you know, theories that, you know, the males are the power and strength, you know, bringing in a character like Helena and Rey at the beginning, you know, it was a way of contrasting that, showing, you know, women are just as strong as men, and in this circumstance of a pack life, you know, they can be just as strong as the alphas. You know, the Lunas and the female betas, you know, they can be just as, you know, badass as the men. And you know, some characters like Carrie, why people want to know why Carrie's the way she is. Well, you know, she's a social climber. She wants power, she wants to be on top, she wants respect, and she thought the best way of doing that was sleeping with Jay. You know, knowing that Rey, from pretty much from birth, was going to be the Luna, she absolutely hated her because she had what she wanted. For her to then take it away by falling pregnant, and then being so nasty to Rey, is her way of sort of, you know, saying, you know, I'm in charge, you know, I'm the Luna, you know, I'm on top, I'm the top dog. So, you know, it's sort of, that's why she's the way she is. She wants power, and that's pretty much why Charlie and Jay are the way they are. They're power hungry. They've let the power, you know, twist their minds. You know, they've let it, you know, they've let it take over. They're so used to being in charge and having their way, and being respected by everybody, that even when it comes to Cole, people have wondered, you know, why do they think that they can disrespect him? Well, that's because they're used to being in charge in their pack. And Cole's father, I probably haven't mentioned it enough in the story, but he was quite a powerful alpha of alphas. And as I've said in the beginning of, you know, earlier on in the story, that obviously Rey and the others had met Cole before, and he'd been there with his father, and they'd been there a few times. You know, Cole's father was respected, and for Cole to come in to be alpha of alpha, you know, in his mid to late 20s, you know, for some people it's going to be a bit of a, you know, a bit of a shock, a bit of a, you know, I'm not going to be told what to do by a child. For some people, I guess for Charlie, and let's say he doesn't want to listen to Cole because, you know, in his mind he's the older, wiser person. Maybe he'd be better off as alpha of alpha than somebody who he feels is too inexperienced. As for Jay, well, like Rey at the beginning of the story, he wanted to rebel against the fact that he was being told who to love, who to be with, what his life was going to be. So for a lot of people who have attacked Jay early on in the story for his sleeping around and his womanising ways, it was his way of rebelling, his way of going against his father to say, you know, this is my life, I'm going to do what I want. For the fact, you know, that his obsession with Ray, well, as he admitted to her, he's even though he wanted to rebel against the fact that, you know, he didn't want to be told who to love, he did love her. But I think also it might not be the sort of love that you'd normally expect, you know. I think he liked the fact that he knew that he didn't have to do anything to get her. She was going to be his, you know, so he could have his fun until the time that she was going to be his. And I think now he still has it in his head. He's got, you know, I think the power and everything that's happened, the loss of his child, the fact that he can't be with her, and now that, you know, Carrie's having his child, and understanding the fact that what he chose to do with Carrie has impacted on Ray's life and in his life, it's kind of made him lose it a bit. It's twisted his mind, and his mental health is clearly impaired, you know. But the fact of the things he's done to her in the last few chapters, the fact that he still thinks that she's his, even though he knows that Cole is her mate, he's still determined to have her. And some people also want to know if, obviously now that Cole has come back and taken away Jay's title and his father's, they want to know, you know, if he could do that without a fight, because obviously in a lot of things you've got to fight for that thing, but Cole being Alpha of Alpha, his power and authority outrules everybody's, you know, he's more powerful and stronger than anyone. As for the question, will Jay be back now that he's been locked away? Possibly. It is a possibility he may come back, even Carrie may come back. I have some ideas of what I want to happen, but obviously, as you can tell by my cliffhangers, I'm not going to tell you. So I'm going to let you wait and see what's going to happen with that. Also, people want to know if Ray's going to have children. That also is something that I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let you wait and see. It's a possibility. Something could happen. Maybe things are different now she's with Cole. Maybe the doctor was wrong. Maybe there's other ways of getting around it. Maybe they're find a child and adopt it. I'm not going to say whether they're going to have children or not. You know, with his sisters being, you know, now mated to what are now high-ranking members of Ray's pack, maybe that will come into play as to who the next Alpha of Alpha in the line will be. But you know, obviously that's something that you'll have to wait and see. You know, and people wanted to know how Jay could mark Carrie and when they're not mates. Well, I didn't want it to be a sort of thing, you know, only mates can mark each other. I didn't want it to be that, you know, mates was the only way that you could fall in love. I wanted it to be that you could choose your mate. You know, there is somebody out there for you, but at the same time you can still choose. Some people have got a little confused and actually thought that Jay had also marked Ray. He hasn't actually bit us to say, you know, so as in to actually leave a mark, but it's more of like a love bite, a hickey. You know, it's not the fact that he's actually sunk his teeth in her. He's left a sort of bruising, sort of hickey type mark, sort of leaving his mark on her. And you know, people want to know why her father and her friends didn't stick up for her when she said that he'd done this. As for her friends, you know, they've stuck by her through a lot of things, and even though that they were all a group of friends at the start, such as Alec, Marcus and Jarvis, they've all sided with her. You know, as you see in the story, the fact that they don't tend to hang around with Jay and Chris as much. And as for Chris, he loves his sister, you know, he will do anything for his sister, but his loyalties have to remain with Jay. He's his beta, which is the same for Charlie. People wanted to know why Charlie was so easy to believe that she'd gone crazy. It wasn't the fact that he thought she'd gone really gone crazy or anything. You know, he loves his daughter just like Chris loves his sister, and even though he can come across as a bit of a, you know, a bit of a pig, you know, wanting her to dress, you know, skimpy clothes and stuff, even though he wants that, at the same time he's still a protective, worried father. But the loss of his mate had messed with his head slightly, and the fact that he too, like Chris, is a beta, so for his whole life he's been told and taught that he has to follow his alpha. What his alpha says is law. And he has, you know, with Jay being the next alpha in line, he has to respect him, and that is, you know, why, you know, he sided with them. And the fact that Ray, with what has happened to her, has, you know, in times has shown, you know, signs of depression and stuff. So, you know, it's possible to think that maybe for them, to think that maybe her head isn't quite in the right place from time to time. But they do all stand by it. It's not just the fact that Cole's come back and now they've jumped on the bandwagon because they don't want to get in trouble. As you can clearly see, Charlie's is still in trouble for not backing her, and as for her friends, you know, they freshly found their mates, so they're slightly preoccupied, I guess you could say. Some people want to know if there'll be a sequel. Well, the simplest answer is yes, there is going to be a sequel. I haven't quite decided yet where I'm going to end this story and where the next one's going to start. There may be quite a few more chapters of this story. There may only be a few. It's something I'm going to go with as I go along and then decide. So there will be a sequel, and I plan to the plan is to call it Life Straight Up. So following the Life on the Rocks sort of idea of, you know, ways you can have a drink. It's going to go along with that, the fact that there may be several sequels to this story which have a same sort of theme and title. A slightly stranger question I've had is one about a character that, to be honest, when I read the question, I couldn't actually remember who it was. Somebody wanted to know if Rex is going to find his mate, and for ages after reading the question, I couldn't remember, and it finally hit me that Rex was it's one of Cole's guards who took Helena and Ray to the club. People want to know if he's going to be in the story again or whether that's him gone. And up until I'd read that question, I hadn't had a second thought about it. Now there's a possibility that I might add him into the story somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where yet, but you know, it's possible that could happen. It's one of those things that I like to leave open. You know, many things for me are going on with things as I go along. So I'll come up with, I might have an idea for a chapter, and then as I write it, that'll change slightly. So, you know, who knows? That's pretty much all the questions really I've had so far. And once again, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you. You know, you're the reason I write. And you know, without you guys, there wouldn't be a Life on the Rocks. You know, there wouldn't be Miss Piggy 88. So for any of you that, you know, see this on either YouTube or on my Wattpad page, you know, it's also going to be on my Facebook Life on the Rocks page, so, you know, check it out. You know, there's going to be updates on chapters, pictures of characters. You know, you can upload your own things, you know, put who you think characters would be, what you think should happen. You know, it's a forum for you to tell me what you want, and it's a way of me saying thanks back, you know, thanks for all your support. And you know, where would I be without you? So without you, this story would not be half the success it is. So once again, thank you. And I guess there's only one thing left to say now, and that's cheerio for now, my lovelies. Bye.